All right. Welcome, everybody, to our conversation today. We have Janet Krebs with us, and we are talking about leadership. Leadership is a posture, not a position. And she has some amazing and revolutionary ways of thinking about leadership that apply not just to our business and our corporate space, but really how we can take that out into the world and how it's really going to change the world. So if you're in leadership, if you're a parent, if you do ministry, if you have a business, then listen up, because this conversation is going to be for you. So Janet, tell us a little bit about what you do in terms of, like, why did you get interested in this leadership thing? What do you do with it? Why are you so passionate about it?
Well, it's interesting because I'm old enough to see lots of trends in the world. And of course, nobody can deny social media. However, we all, adults, young people, we see the influencers, right? And we are all seduced, young kids, comparisonitis, to these influencers who have mega followings, et cetera, et cetera. And my fear was initially, just chewed on that a little bit, is like, what is the message that we're telling people? That you have to have that level of celebrity to be an influencer. And I think it skews our perspective of the footprint, of the impact that we can have on the world. So leadership being a posture, not a position, is really an invitation, Michelle, for everyday leaders, you, me, teachers, clergy, coaches, like normal everyday people, parents, moms, dads, to step into a posture of leadership and not just giving it away or segmenting it into the role that you have as a professional human. We're all leaders. If you're a role model, you're a leader. If you're standing in the grocery line and you help somebody with a laundry detergent that's too heavy for them because they have an arm in a sling, you're exhibiting leadership skills. We have forgotten that the soft skill silo of skills in leadership is the most important aspect of it. So that was a very long answer. So let's just land with, it's an invitation for us all to step into and own the leadership skills that we have.
Yes. Well, and it wasn't too long for me. I was really enjoying that, actually. And so interesting too. I saw a comedian one time, actually, that you're reminding me of. He was influencing influencers. He was asking the question, can influencers be influenced? And they're like, oh, no. So he brought these really big, IG. At the time, IG was really big. So he brought a bunch of IG influencers, and then he was just like talking to them for a few minutes, showing them some pictures on his phone. I don't know if you've seen this yet, or you're like shaking your head, but then he had this huge room. He took them to a selfie place where it had all these different selfie rooms. And then he said, okay, yeah, here's a bucket of 35 objects. Go to any room, take any pictures, just have fun with these selfies. And then when they came back, he's like, okay, pick your favorite picture and post it right now. And they all did. And then he like dropped, then he had like this big canvas where he just pulled back the picture that he picked. And it was the exact same one. Every single one of them posted the exact same picture. And it was fascinating because
it's fascinating.
Just in a few minutes, he like influenced them with some things he was talking and showing them. And so I think it just really comes back to what you're saying, that every single thing that we do is influencing the people around us. You're a leader, whether you like it or not. This is something that even just conversations that we have with each other, it's having this deep subconscious effect that we don't even know what it is. And so what are we doing with that leadership position? And yeah, so that's what I want to hear from you. Is like, maybe you can respond first. Go ahead.
for all the mindset people out there, I'm a mindset person, and in many ways it's mindset, right? Why are we so willing to give away that posture to others when we have it? So I love to start conversations. I could have sung to you, sung, whatever. Whitney Houston, let us teach and let them lead the way, right? And I believe the children are, I mean, like it all started downloading into all of this. It's like, we have to step up. And
Yeah.
it started with parents because I'm a former teacher of 20 years. And so I've seen it from both sides.
Yeah.
And it's just, I really just I want people to just go look in the mirror. It's you. Your kids are counting on you to guide them through this thing called life school. And when we do our jobs, then we raise the standout adults of tomorrow, which really should be our goal, is to raise a fantastic future.
Yeah. Yes. So tell me a little bit more, because for me, I don't know if anybody else listening has the same thing, but sometimes I think leadership and it's just like, oh, it's like this big concept that we've heard so many times, but we don't really even know what it means anymore. And so for you, what does it mean to really take on that posture of leadership, and what impact does that have in people's lives whenever they actually do that?
Well, that's the whole message behind the course and the coaching and all of that. And I work from an acronym, which we don't have to go into, but a lot of it is really, let's just simplify. I love simple. Simply, like, what is the vision that you have? Like, vision would be a standard leadership skill, but do you have vision within your family? For example, the vision for my family was I wanted my kids to live independently. I wanted them to go and leave the nest and be able to thrive like that. Mm-hmm. So I remember one of my clients, she was just like, I don't know what to do. I was dropping off laundry at 2 a.m. and her light was still on. And I think she wanted me to react to her child's light still on. And all I could focus on was, why was she dropping off folded laundry to an adult, a high school child in the middle of the night? So it's like, so my goal was stop doing the things that my kids needed to learn and give them enough practice so that they would get competent and confident in their ability to do it. So that's what I mean by vision. Right? Another soft skill, leadership skill, is communication. Say what you mean what you say. Huge in my family. So for me, it's just about when you set the vision for your family, and then you pick on some of your standards and values, and then we reverse engineer, and what is it strategically that we're going to do to help you get that kind of transformation within your family.
Yes. Okay. So many great examples. So you work a lot with parents to implement this and take that leadership posture in their home. Is that right?
Yes.
And so, yeah, give us, you don't have to give us the whole acronym, but you're saying whenever you work with them, first you start with the vision of what they want to create in their life or in their family. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for their kids. And for the family, yeah.
Yeah. So tell us more of the process that you typically take people through.
Well, we should probably say right off the bat that it's not one size fits all, right? So while I work with, some frameworks, and I would always encourage people, if you are actually going to say yes to coaching, or I call myself a family strategist, not a coach, but I coach to get them the strategies. It should never be a one size fits all, especially if you're working with something that involves humans. So like for me, my L is, lead with love, and that doesn't really resonate with a lot of people because we've also thought of leadership perhaps as somebody in charge. Big difference between management and leadership, right? So we have to make sure that parents understand what leadership looks like within their family and that feels good for them. My E for lead is to just set an extraordinary example, be that role model, all the time, which could be, but to stay simple, it's just really about being intentional about the decisions that you make and the strategies that you put in place. A for me is going to always lead back to being accountable. So making sure that there's some accountability. I parented as a consequence and accountability queen. It's my superpower. More on that. And then D for lead is if for those that love assessments and they need the data, I have a super effective tool that's aligned with a DISC version for families. Because my belief is that unless you really understand who it is that you're talking with and what lights them up and what is their organic, natural way of being a human, you're doing this, right? It's forehead to the wall, right? It's like, why can't I get my kid to do whatever? But if you don't understand what drives them, what's their nature, then you can't nurture. So I use a version of DISC that has been trademarked for families through the Love and Logic Institute. And that profile has proved profound. That was a lot of P's, Michelle.
That was good. That was good alliteration.
Yes.
Speaking it up. I love that. Okay, lead. And I've heard you say that before. I was going to ask you more about that in terms of the personality, because I remember you mentioned that one time and I was like, yes, I was so interested in that. But again, starting with love, I just recently read The Go-Giver. I'm absolutely obsessed with that book right now. I'm like, how can I do this? But it just makes so much sense. So as I was reading that book, if you're not familiar, listen.
Oh, I've read it a number of times.
Yes. If you haven't read it, go do it. It takes like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. It's a really quick read, but it's
beautiful book. Beautiful book to share with your middle to late teen kids.
Yes, well, I'm actually reading it with my kids in homeschool.
Yeah.
But it's just a story, and they're 7 and 10. And they're getting it. So anyways, it's about giving first and giving value first. And for me personally, I was reflecting, even in business, what's the highest value that I can possibly give in business? And for me, it really comes down to love. And I know we don't necessarily talk about that in business either, but that's the whole foundation of businesses, relationships, and the foundations of relationships is love. And so I love that you start with that, because honestly, everyone who comes to us, who's working with us, if you walked into even like a gas station and somebody looked you in the eye and just loved you and listened to you, you would notice right away. You would feel seen and heard. You would, it would absolutely change your day. So I think it doesn't matter whether you're in the home or you're in business, wherever you're being a leader, that really is the foundational piece that you're talking about right there.
And I think people, and just to piggyback, I agree with you. Like, we don't talk about love in business, and it's because we segment love in this compartment of relationships and romance, when love is really just, what is the position of your heart? And is it open? And are you receptive to receive and to give? Or are you closed, right? And so it's just like, let's redefine love and insert it in other areas of our life. Again, giving us permission to do exactly that. So I think we have pigeonholed love to be that taboo that can't integrate in other areas. But you are absolutely correct in what you just said. It's everywhere.
Yes, it's everywhere, and it needs to be the foundation. And then the other stuff just builds on that, because you love them, you're willing to listen. You're willing to see what's their personality style. How can I help them? Because you love them, you can do the strategies. And I think it just makes it all perfect from there. And the personality, I would love to hear from you more too about this personality test and how you've seen it really affect and help these families, because I know for me, I didn't use the same personality test, but my youngest, I'm really interested in human design. So my youngest, I figured out, I pulled up his human design, which is similar to a personality test. And I was like, oh, it helps me have so much more patience with him, because he's not motivated by doing. He's not motivated by accomplishing things at all. all, right? And so everybody else, it's like, okay, let's get this done. And they're like, yes. And my 10-year-old's like checklists all the way. And he's just like, okay, what do I need to do to get this done and move on? And, but he's just like, la, 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 like frolicking in the woods. Like I could care less about a checklist, And so it's been so helpful to just give him the space to be him and recognize that he has his own strengths and abilities that are going to bless everyone. And like, he doesn't like to do things for himself. He's just always asking me to make stuff for him. And so just, knowing his strengths and his tendencies and anyways, it's just been very, very helpful for me, I know, in my home. But what have you noticed in working with people?
It's going to be a yes. And it's fabulous to learn about your kids, but I think it works best when the adult plays along as well.
Oh, yes.
Because there's one segment of the report that talks, it kind of integrates the, like when you do this, they're hearing this, right? We love those.
Yeah, that's very cool.
When you say this is what they hear or want to do and how they react. So it's just as important to know you. So for example, let's say like what you were just describing in the example with you and your son, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's kind of like you're being kind of a driver inspirer. Like you've got this bit like, okay, we got to go. This is the system. This is the routine. This is what we're doing. And you've got this big energy. And I've never met the kid. And so all the viewers, this is not staged. This is really very spontaneous, but he's probably like your cautious supporter, right? The S and the C part of DISC. It's just kind of like you come in like the bull in the china shop and he's just like, whoa, like I'm not that spontaneous. You just tell me what you want me to do in the next 15 minutes and I'm on board, kind of a thing. So it's both give and take of how we deliver and to manage expectations and how can we communicate our needs and how can we hear their needs in a way in which it's completely compatible. And can you imagine, like, even with just what I said, that's a game changer. Another example, just for those, I know you homeschool your kids because we had a chance to establish that prior to the call, but can you imagine how helpful this would be in classrooms?
Oh, yes.
And for the school districts that say yes to this as a team, as a collective, classroom management becomes not the focus. Because you know who you're talking to. You know what your kid's learning style, learning personality, like you just know something about them. So now you're like, you've got this superpower.
Well, I know
talk to them.
And what you're talking about with the interaction seems so fascinating and really takes it to another level, because even just understanding what motivates him or how he sees things, it's like he's motivated by praise. He just wants to be seen. He wants to be acknowledged. He's the casual observer. He doesn't need to be doing anything, and just understanding that, I think it eliminates a lot of the frustration of why aren't you doing this? Just get it done, where I'm not like yelling at him all the time, because I just understand who he is. And that if I continue to motivate him in this way, it's not going to work at all. And so why am I wasting my time? And I think it just gives us, again, taking it back to love, gives us more compassion because we understand each other better. And then even, again, whether at home or in the workplace or in your business or with your clients, you're able to understand so much better and really give them a better result. Yeah.
And so at the risk of sounding like a storyteller, because I'm totally fabricating this, let's turn that exact same story, because you work from home. And so let's turn that around to a parent, doesn't matter, mom or dad, aunt, uncle, grandparent, doesn't matter who it is, comes back into the home after an 8-hour shift and a 2-hour commute, an hour each way, right? So being a patient listener is not necessarily the top of their priority. They want, whatever it is that their priority. I won't make up that part of the story, but they're going to come in with a whole different agenda and a whole different mindset. But I left you a list. There were 4 things on the list. Why isn't the list of things that I needed done? I'm trying to get dinner on the table. And all I asked you to do is these 4 things. And the kids are now scrambling around, right? And it's like, is that really how you want to spend the few hours rather than just understanding your kids? Be like, okay, I left you 4 things. Bobby, you've got until 5:30. Or whatever, like you have to frame it for each kid. Like, and in the classroom, we're like, hey, it would be super fun. Can you imagine for all my high D guys, you've got 10 minutes to complete this for the rest, right? Like,
yes, for sure.
Right. For the rest, for some of you, within the next 30 minutes, this is what I need from you. And like, now it's a game, but everybody feels seen and heard. And as we know, did you know, I think it's common knowledge, but maybe it's not. 95% of all kids, it's their number one complaint at home. In their world, they don't feel seen and heard. And don't get me started about depression, anxiety, and our suicide rates, because I'm going to speculate. I'm not a scientist in this regard, but I have been studying human behavior for 40 years. You can't tell me that can't be a contributing factor to those 3 scary symptoms in our world today with our young people.
Yes.
I'll just
we can go on and on because I think
gonna let that hang.
Yeah, it's just I think as humans too, we just want to make everybody else do what we want, right? And so in our homes, that's where it comes out, because as kids, we can just like make them do what we want them to do. And it's more of this dictatorship that's going on in homes and in schools and in the workplace. Let's be honest, everywhere we just are not. Everything sounds nice. Like, it sounds nice that it's a democracy, or it sounds nice if we could work together. But I think in practice, most of the time, it's hey, do what I say. And
that's why I was
punishment.
quick to make the distinction between leadership versus being a boss or a manager. There's a big difference.
Yes.
Right?
And so what do you find is the number one thing that kind of holds parents back from doing that shift and getting these results with their kids?
I'm going to go out on a limb. Ungrounded, because this is just a belief or an opinion. So we'll just leave it as an opinion, people. This is unsubstantiated. So you can call me, it's fine, but let's just have a conversation. I think it's shame.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
I think it's the shame in admitting that they don't have all the answers. Think about this, Michelle. In this world of this mega knowledge bank that we have access to, how does it feel when you say, I don't know, or I'm struggling, or I don't have the answer to this, or I don't know what to do? And when we think about parenting, if we're going to use that example, we're just supposed to know. We're just supposed to know. We're just supposed to bring home this human being and know exactly what to do organically for the next 20 years and for the rest of their lives. We're supposed to have all the answers and just know what it is. And God forbid you ask somebody or admit to somebody that you don't know.
Yes. Or I can completely resonate with what you're saying, and I think it's even heightened in the business space, because I'm going to look like an idiot. They're not going to trust me. How are they going to trust me if I don't have the answers, or if I'm not in control, or if I don't have everything figured out? Or that's going to hurt my kids more if they can see that I'm crying. I had one woman who was telling me that don't let your kids see you cry. Like, never let your kids see that you have a weakness, basically. And I was like, that sounds awful. Sorry. And just where that's not personally how I parent, because it's not reality.
How will they learn? Like, you're giving your child, you're taking the permission away from them to be human.
Yes. And you know what I've learned as well I think we all get super scarred as children, and we have to go through this learning process of, understanding who we are and the whole growth process. But, I just reached a point where I was so grateful that my parents weren't that they were human, that they weren't perfect. Because I was like, you know what? If they were perfect, I wouldn't have had to learn this. I wouldn't have had to learn this. I wouldn't have grown in this way. And so I'm like, hey, their imperfections have been such a gift. And our imperfections are such a gift to our children. They're such a gift to the people around us. It gives them the opportunity to step up in ways that we aren't strong. With the DISC assessment, there's complementary things that we need and all of us need in our lives. So this has been just a fabulous conversation. But tell us.
Funny anecdotal story, and then we can tie up that exact statement that you just said. My son just got married, and my daughter gave a speech, and it sounded as much of a roast to my son Ben as it did to an address of the parenting challenges that it's like my daughter punked me so much in that speech, but it was hilarious because listening to it in the air, like the Clean Room Award, she talked about how she was scarred because she always lost the Clean Room Award. And I'm like sitting there laughing, like, who would ever have thought that an award
award is so scarring? Yes.
Anyway, so yeah, being human does come back oftentimes with your adult children as they poke fun at all the ridiculous things that you did to them as children.
100%. Yes. And I remember one of the moments that scarred me the most when I was doing my emotional recovery was actually when I was 3 and my mom told me no at the store, I can't have a toy. Just like an everyday experience, but as a child processing it, it was like, you can't have what you want. And I carried that way into adulthood. Seriously,
I'm laughing, but isn't it funny? Like 3. Yeah. And you held on to that like a ball and chain throughout however long you held on to it.
So anyways, I think what we're saying is, yes, there's so many ways that we can be leaders. We can really help our children, but it's not going to be a perfect thing. And your children they're still going to be scarred. Like they're still going to be scarred for life. Right. But they'll figure it out as they go. And knowing, being able to have these strategies in place, I'm sure helps so much that they're open, they're learning these strategies, they have an opportunity to cope, they know where to go. And so tell us where you have a free gift you wanted to drop here for everybody. Is that right? Can you tell us a little bit about it and how people?
Yeah, actually, it's a very quick downloadable. You could print it and put it on your refrigerator. I love to be a disruptor. Some of the things that I said today might go against what people are expecting to hear in this lane. And I love that. I think that we're all ready for some shifts. And so when you go to parentshifts.com, you can download just some things to think about. So like, I love, like, there's a little mini blip. It's super fast about how failure is necessary. Because we all avoid failure like the plague. And yet I believe that it's completely necessary for the growth of us as humans. So it's those kinds of things, not what you would expect, and a total shift in mindset.
Yeah, that's exciting. So some exciting things and I love that it's different, because if you want a different result, you've got to do something different. You got to think different.
Yeah,
so true. Thank you again for jumping on here and having this conversation, letting me introduce you to my audience. Yes, you're doing such amazing work. And Janet and I actually live like 20 minutes from each other. So we might be hanging out, doing some live streaming or something.
Whoop, whoop. Yes.
Right. But for everybody else, yes, comment below. Let us know what you loved about today. Definitely reach out to Janet more. I am just absolutely intrigued about all of the things that you said, especially, I just have some things that I'm like, okay, I'm going to ask you about that later. So thank you again for coming. Any last words that you wanted to share before we go?
No, just remain open, and together we will all raise tomorrow.
Oh, that's beautiful.